What up, meatheads? This is Travis, American Butcher, and this is the Meat Block Podcast. Coming to you late because we had a winter storm that allowed me not to get home, so I wasn't able to record my segment for this episode, so I'll record it later in the week as a bonus episode. You could hear my house in the background because everyone is awake. No one is in bed, but this episode is about apprenticeships, and this first segment is by Ryan.
Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality. Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat.
What up, Meat Block listening community, Meat Block Podcast listeners? Ryan O'Hearn here at Gather and Break on Instagram, coming at you today with an intern program idea. Intern program. Okay, it could also be called an apprenticeship program. Now, nothing new here. A lot of people have thought about intern programs and apprenticeship programs for butchers and those seeking the butcher skill set. A lot of people have created those programs and implemented those programs, especially in other countries, especially in earlier decades. The truth of the current climate, at least in the United States, though, is that access to mentorship and access to these kinds of training programs for butchers has been hard to find and hard to come by. That has been the butcher learning climate in the recent decades. Now, there's been some great books that have come out to help kind of fill this void. There's been some great podcasts that have come out to help fill this void and to help educate. Meat Block Podcast of particular notoriety, Travis and David. There's been a lot of good educators out there putting forth YouTube videos, audio visual, which is really an incredible way to learn. Books do a lot of good. Audio visual does a lot of good. But so would an intern program and apprenticeship program, and there's high demand for that. Furthermore, there's a lot of good people already who have been working on trying to fix this shortage of apprenticeship programs. There was the Fleischer's program that existed, and it was very popular, and it offered one way of structuring a program. It offered a certain model, and a lot of good work was done there by good people. That program's closed down. Even if it was still open, we would want more than just that. We would want more opportunities besides the Fleischer's model. We would want different models. Currently, there's a lot of intelligent butchers and educators out there at this very moment working on trying to create one of these programs or more of these programs. So in that sense, I'm offering just an extension, an addition to the thinking that has already been taking place. The World Butchers Challenge American team has been talking about and thinking about apprenticeship programs and access to mentorship programs. The Butchers Guild and the Butchers Manifesto crew have been working on and coming up with ideas for how to organize these type of programs. Everyone is aware, very aware of the shortage of access points for novice beginner butchers and even seasoned butchers that are seeking to build out their skill set across this wide, vast set of skills that is the meat industry, the meat world, the butcher's skill set. So allow me to dive into my way of thinking about this problem. As I think about access to mentorship, I also think about two other themes and motifs that plague our industry, problems, as it were. One of those problems is, how do you find good workers and keep good workers in a facility, in a business that is by its nature seasonal? That is a problem that plagues much of the seasonal butchering industry, where we have floods and famines. We have months and weeks of high volume work, and then months and weeks of very, very low volume work. And the result is that many good butchers do not stay and go to more consistent work opportunities at grocery stores and such. One more question has come up that is very tied to these other two questions, and that is, how do we get more custom exempt facilities? How do we get more custom shops in our farming regions? There's high demand in the custom exempt sector right now, and it is very hard for small farmers. In many cases, it's very hard for them to even schedule a slaughter date, because the few custom facilities in their region are very swamped and overloaded with work, and they have to postpone slaughter dates sometimes for 5 and 6 and 7 months in advance, and this is problematic. So let me dive in here. This intern program is a response to some very real problems that exist in the small cut and wrap sector within which I work, and these problems have been plaguing my company and other companies similar to mine for a long time. Especially as the old guard that has carried these companies now edges towards retirement and work volume demands continue to increase, especially as the old guard begins to hand off to a new guard, these issues become highlighted. Now, I work in the USDA cut and wrap sector, and we have a USDA mobile kill truck. We are identical to the custom exempt sector in that our work is seasonal, mostly in the fall and in the summer and spring, but mostly in the fall is when farmers want to have animals killed and cut and wrapped. Yeah, okay, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I just said that. Okay. Now, game processing follows the same pattern of high workload rally months of the year shadowed by low workload or layoff months of the year. It's a fact that it's harder for these seasonal businesses to keep good help when they potentially may be forced to take a layoff or reduction in hours. Many good butchers and meat cutters have left the cut and wrap sector because of the winter slow time and have chosen to pursue careers with large grocery stores that are, because of their large corporation status, are able to provide them with better and more consistent hours. I'm being redundant. I just said that a few minutes ago. I'm going to be redundant again. Many farmers here, they express that they wish there was more custom shops in their regions. The demand for custom processing is very high in many small farmer regions. Small farmers have had a very hard time securing slaughter dates. Okay, now I'm totally being redundant. But this was what came up. One of the things that came up at the Focus on Farming conference that Travis spoke at is questions from farmers about how to get more custom shops in their area. Game processors and custom processors regularly have to turn away business because they cannot carry enough employees to get the work done. So farmers routinely ask, how can we get more custom processors and small processors of every kind in our region? This question leads to the next question, which is, how can we train the next generation of novice butchers? And also, how can we make the seasonal cut and wrap sector more appealing to journeyman butchers? Journeyman butchers meaning those butchers that already have a solid skill set. I don't know. That's my definition of a journeyman butcher. A butcher who no longer is seeking training necessarily, even though we're all lifelong learners here, but a butcher who is capable at working in a workflow without any guidance and is self-sufficient. I would probably call that person a journeyman butcher. Now let's cut to the chase. Eventually, finally, I'm arriving at the following intern proposal is an attempt to find a solution that appeals to everybody. My hope is that novice butchers gain benefit and that journeyman butchers gain benefit and that seasonal businesses gain benefit from these ideas. So here's the outline. The what? The what is a fixed time frame paid intern program. A fixed time frame paid intern program. So this is a different model. Already I'm proposing, instead of an intern or apprentice paying for a program, I'm proposing a paid program. And I'll get into why it's paid. Now, the pay rate is going to be low. This is similar to an apprenticeship on many farms. Farm apprenticeships, of which there are many, offer either a very low pay rate or they offer some combination of food and lodging. Either food and lodging and no pay, or some combination of low pay rate plus maybe some food, or maybe, there's always a combination of either some sort of pay or stipend with food and lodging. So that is more similar to the style of program that I'm going to describe here. Why? Why would a company want to pay an intern? Why would a company or a business, small business, want to pay an intern? Well, there's a few reasons. One, setting up an intern education program will give the company access to a variety of education-related grant money. Education-related grant money can help bring some capital. That can only be a good thing. Get more capital, get more grant money coming at your business. Here's another way to do that. Now, another reason of why. Well, okay, a well-directed intern could increase overall shop productivity during the busiest and highest volume months of the year. So the next why, besides grant money, the next why is to increase overall shop productivity during the busier months of the year. Every company wants their busy months to go smoothly and to go well, and they want to be very productive. If you hire the right intern and you have good guidance and direction for them, this could be the result. Now, in many circumstances, a company will need that one more pair of hands during the busiest months. And they won't need that extra pair of hands during the slow months. So why not bring on one or two interns during the busy months to be those extra pair of hands, to be those couple other bodies in the shop at that time when you need a couple other bodies in the shop to help during the busy times. Does that sound ridiculous to you? I'm going to get into some critiques of this program at the end. Because I can already imagine some people saying, why would you bring in an intern right at that time when you need your shop to be a well-oiled machine? And now you're introducing a couple of people who don't know their asses from their elbows into this well-oiled machine, and you're expecting it to go well and to increase overall productivity. That doesn't sound right. Well, okay, so I'm going to get into that critique of this program towards the end here and kind of frame my way of thinking about this. But for now, just bear with me. Bear with me here. One of the problems I see is that during the flood times of year, custom shops and cut and wrap shops and seasonal shops are desperate to get some more hands on deck. But if they were to hire good, capable workers, the company is not able to carry those extra workers with hours and with wages through the rest of the year. essentially they have to then again lay them off. So it doesn't really work to bring on more journeyman meat cutters during that extra time of year. Some companies are able to. They get a big pool of basically meat cutters who have other jobs that are looking for side work, and they have them come into the shop. So that's the current way that most companies solve this problem, is they bring in meat cutters from grocery stores. They bring them in one day on the weekend or one day here and there on those guys' day off, and they kind of patchwork quilt it all together during their busy times. Okay, so that can work in some circumstances if you have that pool of meat cutters that are willing to come in and help you kick ass during your busy times and busy weeks and busy months. The intern program is a slightly different spin on that. It is a way to bring in people, interns, who are looking to see a real workflow and to do all the things, the remedial things, such as throwing lugs into the grinder and taping up boxes and boning out beef necks on the table and just doing these things over and over again to allow the journeyman meat cutter and to allow the higher skilled workers to do the higher skill work unfettered by the more remedial tasks. Interns and apprentices come in to do those more remedial tasks, and it becomes a win-win situation because the intern is getting to see a real workflow and getting some reps on the table and getting to understand what this industry is all about through a real life work experience rather than a contrived classroom situation. Okay. Hiring and time frame. Okay, so I have no idea. It is unclear to me whether a 1 month, a 2 month, a 3 month internship would be optimal. Perhaps the time frame would need to be determined on a case-by-case basis. I think it would be company specific. I think it'll be intern specific. What is the right time frame? So once a company identifies their busy times of the year, that gives them some sort of useful information to go on, and then they can try to find interns during those busy times of the year. Just like hiring any regular position, care should be taken to hire the correct intern, the one who is most likely to fit well and succeed in the specific situation they will be stepping into. So the program will probably fail if care is not taken in finding a compatible intern personality with the shop situation that they will be stepping into. Okay, next topic. Why would anyone want to intern? This is where, okay, let me just read a couple things here to kind of get the ball rolling on this. Why would anyone want to intern? Interest in meat cutting, butcher work, slaughter work has been on the rise in recent years, yet it remains very, very difficult for apprentices to gain access to mentorship opportunities, blah, blah, blah. There are very few legitimate places for apprentices to learn. Okay, I said that before. Okay. The difference between this program and a classroom-based program is that this program offers a real-world workflow. It offers a real-world, real-life situation of a real company. This is not a classroom situation, although there can be some add-on classroom-type things to kind of boost out your program, put in there as add-ons. But the bulk of what this type of intern apprenticeship offers is the real-world, real-life opportunity. So it offers an intern a glimpse into the entire process, starting at the farm, in many cases, starting at the farm, including the mobile slaughter work, including the aging, the breaking, the team cutting, the retail portion cutting, and the packaging considerations. That's the whole thing right there, aside from the cooking, which maybe is the last part of it. Now, let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So components of the program. The intern program would be predominantly comprised of time assisting. The intern would be spending their time assisting in the cut and wrap facility, in the workflow situation. In addition, the intern would spend 1 or 2 days possibly observing, helping out on the slaughter truck, possibly a farm tour. There's a lot of ways to kind of bulk up this program to make it more interesting for the intern. Have them shadow on the kill truck, whether it's a custom kill truck or whether it's a USDA kill truck or whatever, or whether it's a stationary slaughter facility. Maybe, let them get the experience of seeing that. Let them get some farm tours to help them, do some classes, some extra classes about cooler aging, meat aging considerations and how to create a successful aging situation in the cooler. Do some knife sharpening classes. Do some carcass reading classes where you learn that you're teaching them how to look at a carcass and understand if this is an older carcass, if this is a younger carcass, teaching them to look at the cartilage in various places around the carcass, to teaching them to look at the bones, look at the color, talk to them about the rotation in the cooler, optimal aging of carcasses, etc. The intern would still be beginning repetitions on the cutting block, making sure you're meeting them halfway with getting the repetitions, boning out stuff at the table. So helping them to become part of the team cutting workflow without necessarily having them do the really high skill stuff, but allowing them to enter into the workflow in a way where they're still useful and they're not slowing things down and they're getting the repetitions that they need to get better and to learn this stuff. The intern would learn to run an industrial grinder, bricker, cryovac machine. They would learn freezer organization strategies. This may sound remedial and boring, but this stuff is the real world of meat cutting. You can't have a cut shop without learning about cooler rotation, without learning about how to box things properly, without learning how to wrap and label things properly, without learning about what comes in, time frames, how it goes out, communication with farmers, etc. How to generate a pool of intern applicants. I think in this day and age of social media is one of the most logical choices for how to generate and advertise for your intern program, and how to find a wide audience of possible interested interns in apprenticeship. Social media is an obvious choice. Facebook, the Meat Block community, the Meat Block podcast, Butcher's Manifesto, the Butcher's Guild, the WBC teams. There could be a lot of organization of these different opportunities advertised and blasted across Instagram and social media platforms and Facebook. With a wide enough pool of applicants and a wide enough variety of places that offer these kinds of similar programs, custom shops and USDA shops, it's very reasonable to think that the right interns could be matched up with the right shops to get their experience at. And there could be some degree of success and mutual beneficial benefit that could come from these kinds of things. Now here, let's get into some criticisms here. So what if the intern turns out to be a terrible match for the job? Okay, so I could see someone asking that. Care should be taken in the hiring so that those who run the company are trying to find someone who won't be a terrible fit for position, because that just sets everyone up for a poor experience. A contract could be created by the employer at the outset so that certain concepts were very clear to the intern, such as the employer can fire the intern at any time during the during the opportunity, just like a normal job. If it's not working out, the employer can let the person go. So, these kinds of contracts at the outset, so there's transparency and clarity, go a long way. Will the intern feel used and abused and ripped off for doing grunt work for an insanely busy company? Okay, so maybe that's a question someone might ask. What does the intern get out of this? Or isn't it likely that the intern is going to feel like they're doing shit work? Okay, and I kind of answered this already by saying shit work. This is the real world of being a meat cutter and running a meat cut and wrap facility. Is that the real world is all these kind of rudimentary stuff. It's keeping the flow going and keeping things organized and keeping everything blah, blah, blah. You get it. So my recommendation here is to be as forthright as possible with potential interns right from the outset. This is the best way to manage expectations. Remind them that the hallmark of this kind of program is that it is paid. It is real world. It gives students full immersion in a real workflow on the job scenario. It's not a fluffy, cushy internship. It gives the gift of the real world dynamic as opposed to the contrived world dynamic. It gives the student a chance to see if this butcher journey they are wanting to embark on is really their cup of tea or not. That's huge. It takes the fantasy out of the pursuit of butchery work. That's a valuable thing. Think about how many people want to be doctors, and then once they do like 10 years of schooling and then become doctors, they realize that they're not interested in being doctors. Being a doctor is not interesting to them. It was the fantasy of being a doctor that they are pursuing and not the real world of it. So same thing with butchering and meat cutting. Let's take the fantasy out of it. Let's not set up our novice butchers. Let's not set them up for failure. If this isn't for them, this isn't what they thought it would be. It'd be best to teach them that right off the bat, if possible, or at least earlier in their career, the better, so they can either go a different direction with their life and kind of come out of their delusion about what a butchering career might be, or they can just get more wind in their sails about how this is what they want to do. This is the direction they want to go, and then they got even more wind in their sails, and no one's wasting anybody's time. So it takes the internship from a place of fluffy, overly supportive teachers in a classroom scenario, and instead it offers a school of hard knocks. You'll get to work alongside real people who are really living and breathing this trade and this work. And that's totally invaluable. Working along people who have been in the trenches for years, that is invaluable. I work with third and fourth generation butchers, and these guys, they didn't play on sports teams in high school. You know what I mean? Their extracurricular activity was helping in their dad's meat shop after school and on weekends. And this has been their life. And to work with people who was like, this isn't some romantic thing for them. This is just what they know, and they love it, and they're still in it. That's the type of people you want to be around as a novice. People who really have been in this industry a while. They're going to give it to you straight. These are very valuable people to be around. Okay, so what are some of the strengths and what are some of the weaknesses of this program? Strengths would be, by developing a publicly advertised intern program, a business will be able to tap into the worldwide community. Okay, to tap into a worldwide pool of potential workers. In rural regions, there's often not a lot of people who live in rural regions, and you find a lot of cut and wrap shops in rural regions that just don't have a huge workforce of interested people to choose from. If you live in a city, you're going to have a lot of people around potentially who you might be able to find to come work at your shop. But in smaller towns and smaller, more rural regions, you just don't have the workforce, the bodies. You don't have the people. So why not tap into the worldwide community? People from all over the world, all over the United States, or from different regions, who you can hire for a finite amount of time. And that works out well for them because they want to get back to their region anyway. And that works out well for you because you just got through your busy months and you had some people helping out in the shop that were happy to be there. And it's a win-win. So there's a wide pool of interested candidates. When your net is cast beyond just your local community, there exists a wide pool of interested candidates. People from diverse regions of the world who are interested in a fixed time frame learning opportunity. There is potential for both the intern and the mentors to both come away with a feeling that the program was a mutually beneficial experience. I'm sorry I'm being redundant. I keep on ad-libbing what I'm trying to say and then reading what I'm trying to say and realizing that I already had it written down. I didn't even have to ad-lib it in the first place. But I keep doing that. Okay, so next, one of the other strengths of this program is that it creates a real-world scenario, a full immersion learning opportunity for novice butchers. And what better than the real world? What better than a real workflow? The best way to learn a language is to go to the country where the language is spoken and to immerse yourself. That's the spirit of this program. No fluff. Okay, I take that back. A little bit of fluff. There should be some there should be some liaison for your intern. There should be some there should be some designated person responsible for regularly checking in with the intern and making sure they're doing all right and giving them a little bit of extra guidance and offering them a few special opportunities such as knife sharpening, tutelage, and offering them some, reading material or text to study from if they need to help them figure out what's going on in the shop or help them learn cut names, for example. This liaison, this person who's helping them could offer special add-ons such as farm tours and shadowing on the kill truck and maybe even some tours of nearby shops that do similar work so they can see some different schematics for cut rooms and stuff like that so they can compare and contrast, So that would be a little bit of fluff. It's just kind of like having like a point person who's responsible for making sure the intern is happy. Weaknesses. What are some of the weaknesses of this program? Housing for the intern. Okay, I don't know how to solve this problem. Where the heck is the intern going to live? I don't know. This has got to be solved on a case-by-case basis. Novel solutions may present themselves on a case-by-case basis. Okay, now, checks and balances system. I think ideally, I'm almost at the end here. Ideally, there should be a checks and balances system, a network, an organizing platform for these kind of apprenticeship and intern programs, where people can review, interns and apprentices can review the internship they did in some public way. And then other potential interns, interested interns, can then read the reviews and that'll help them decide if they want to choose this particular shop to do their internship at or not. So this would be like a checks and balances system for this kind of a program. If the intern goes and just has a totally fucked up, horrible experience, then maybe that shop isn't doing a good job to create a good intern program. And the world should know that. And they should get, if the company has a negative review, okay, the company's probably not going to get that many interested applicants in the future. Whereas if they do a pretty good job and they get some positive reviews from their intern, then they're more likely to get some good, solid applicants for future intern opportunities the company may want to present. So that would be a checks and balances kind of system, similar to Uber, similar to Airbnb. There should be a way for the intern to review the experience and either promote or critique the specific place and program where they did the internship at. This kind of publicly available review provides some incentive for the intern program managers to create a positive experience for the interns that they hire. If the interns are giving positive reviews of their experience, it will create a buzz that will generate more and more interested candidates. All right. Thanks for listening. Nothing too profound here, just a continuation of ideas that are already circulating about apprentice programs and intern programs. This is just my own spin on it, my own slightly different take on it. That would be very specific to the cut and wrap sector, the seasonal meat cutting in niches that have the high flood months and the high famine months. And this kind of program could potentially be a win-win-win for generating more skilled butchers and generating more custom shops and generating more, I don't know. I think you guys get what I'm saying. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to record once again for this here Meat Block podcast. And I will look forward to more Meat Block stuff in the future. I hope everyone has a great winter. Hope everyone has some snowball fights if that's your cup of tea. I hope everyone has some R&R, some hibernation, some regeneration time if that's your cup of tea this winter. I hope everyone appreciates the slow and steady climb towards spring that we are currently in the Northern Hemisphere walking on is towards spring.
What up, guys? Travis again. So that was Ryan and his approach to helping this apprenticeship crisis we're in. And what you hear in the background is Harrison playing with trucks and my dog's running around and people cooking dinner. I'm just recording this, just trying to get it done because I haven't been home in a couple days because of the weather. And this next segment is by David and his take about apprenticeships and recommendations and programs.
Hey gang, it's David, and I was hoping that this week I could bend your ear about apprenticeships a little bit. I've had it on my mind a lot lately, partially because I'm hiring for an apprentice at my plant out in sunny Northern California. So if anybody is looking to make a move, has some experience or wants some experience, get a hold of me at themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com. Aside from that, I've just been getting a lot of emails lately from people asking how to get into the industry, what are some opportunities that I know of, am I familiar with any pay-to-play or pay-to-work situations, any apprenticeships. You know, I'm always fielding questions about this, and there are a lot of great ways to get into the business. There's no doubt about that. You know, one thing that I really want everyone to consider, though, is a piece of advice that I got from a friend who's given me advice a number of times since I've been in the industry, and it's always been pretty reliable, or at least welcome. You know, one of my favorite pieces of advice that I got from him already aligned with my personal philosophy, really, which is never pay to work and only sometimes pay to learn. So why would you sometimes want to pay to learn? Well, if, let's say, you're a butcher and decide that you want to start putting animals back together rather than taking them apart, you might want to go to med school, become a vet or a veterinary surgeon. That's not really a career that you can wing. However, if you wanted to get into the meat biz, I do not suggest paying to learn unless it's an elective class and you're going for an associate's or a bachelor's of science in meat science or something like that. I just kind of suggest getting your foot in the door. If you're like I was, you know, living in a populated area, like super ready for a change, but also broke as a joke, culinary school or a meat science degree were out of the question for me. So I knew I wanted to be a butcher, and I knew that I wanted to be a well-rounded butcher. I think this is like right around the time when cooking competitions started to kind of pop up on the Food Network. And it was like the people that knew how to cut meat that were also very skilled in the kitchen always did the best, you know, because they were well-rounded and knew what to do with all the proteins. And so I knew that I wanted to be a great cook, and I wanted to be a butcher, a competent cook, rather. I wanted to be a competent and capable cook, wanted to be a great meat cutter. You know, some of the things that I knew I was going to need was some salesmanship, because I at the time, being a meat cutter, was all about retail. That was all I knew of the industry, was grocer, butchers. And so I knew I wanted to work with cured meat, cooked stuff, smoked stuff, and I knew that I kind of wanted to work in what I perceived at the time to be higher quality. Of course, I didn't know anything about anything at this point. Basically, the first thing I did was identify some places around town. So I was living in Chicago at the time. Identifying some places around town that might have a butcher apprenticeship, and they weren't really accepting entry-level workers at any of the major, popular retail places, like the cool neighborhood shops that were getting kind of famous. I didn't know anything about meat packing row or boning lines or kill floors at the time. I just understood retail, and that was, again, my scope of the whole butchery world. So I eventually ran into a national organic grocer's ad on Craigslist, and they were looking for a butcher apprentice. And so I had never would have thought that this place had a program, and so I applied for it. I went in, I interviewed, I talked to him. I did not get the job. I wasn't even qualified to be an apprentice, but they called me back and offered me a job as a dishwasher in their production kitchen. And so I took it. And then I worked in this dish pit for, 3 or 4 months until they needed a prep cook in their production kitchen. I did that for a while and just kept taking opportunity after opportunity as it came up, whether I was qualified or not, because I just really wanted to learn this stuff. So it was easy to wrap my brain around it. I feel like sometimes if you really want to learn something, it's easy to understand. If you don't want to, it's not. At least that's how I work. So anyways, I went from the dishwasher to the prep cook, and then I was prep cook for a pizza line. So I was learning some knife skills, and then I got a job running, as the prep cook for the smokehouse, making lots of sides and sauces. And then I got the opportunity to be the smokehouse meat prep, I think is what it was called. And it was doing all the brining and the smoking and the dry rubbing and the seasoning and loading and unloading the smoker. And man, that was such a cool job. And it took me over a year to get into this spot, but then my foot was in the door. Then I was in the kitchen, and then from there I went on to become a meat cutter and transferred to another store and got into a real apprenticeship program eventually. And it only took a couple of years, and I was learning the entire time, and all of it was totally invaluable, building a foundation. So I really can't speak strongly enough about that experience. And everything, you learned about workflow and pace and hustle, amongst all the other things that were culinary related. Working in that dish pit was really hard. I was the only person who spoke English, and that wasn't the hard part. That's just a fact. But the hard part was the work. The work was really tough, and it was fast paced, and I really enjoyed it. And so I highly suggest getting your foot in the door, in the lowest rung of the ladder, because especially if you're new to the food industry, because you will learn things as you climb that ladder that you wouldn't learn otherwise. So dishwashing at a restaurant, super, super valuable, because it's just a matter of time before you get a knife in your hands and a cutting board to put over your sink and cut vegetables and learn how to mise out recipes and maybe even do some light baking. This is really common in restaurants that I've worked in the past. So here's a couple other questions that I get. This one's from @rawdog69. They ask, what if you don't live in a city? Because I've given the spiel to somebody else, and they say, well, what if I don't live in a city? So another question from @BostonButtStuff2000. What if you have a full-time job, but you want to get your foot in the door? So, okay, so you're not ready to take the plunge. You don't live in a major metropolitan area where you have all these options. You're living in either a suburban or rural area. Here's my suggestion. If you want to get in the business and you want to move up quickly, you've got to be prepared to go get after it. An entry level position is really what you need. Bottom line, it may mean you pick up shifts doing something you don't like. Maybe it's part-time, maybe just weekends. You might have to work 2 jobs. Maybe you're good with your hands and are particularly adaptable, and maybe you want to lie in your resume to get in somewhere like above your skill set and just wing it, You may want to do that. I've done that before, but if you do, be prepared to be humbled again and again, because people know when you don't know what the hell you're doing. But anyways, if you have limited time, you got to keep your full-time job, but you eventually want to make a transition. You want to start small. I suggest working on the weekends, or working evenings, or working seasonally. I really think that it's worth it to pick up a second job, because it's something you'll look forward to. It creates a contrast between the current work you're doing and this one, and it just kind of keeps you fresh and interested, I think. That's how I got into slaughter, was just 1 or 2 days a week, I'd go work on a mobile truck killing sheep for my friend Jeff, and learn some great skills. It was something I looked forward to every week, and I always, worked as hard as I could because I loved it, and I didn't have to do it 5 days a week. It was a treat. So some really great places to start are weekend work at a custom shop. Custom shops actually do a wider variety of work than most USDA shops, because you get game, you get a lot of multi-purpose animals in there. So you might get like some homesteaders milk cows, like burned up milkers, dairy cull, maybe some bob veal. You could get bison, all kinds of game. And it's a really great way to learn slaughter or fabrication quickly, efficiently, and you can learn a lot of recipes that are super easy. A lot of custom shops do a lot of sausage, smoking, curing, and you can learn some really cool basic processes from these places. The other great thing about custom exempt shops is they're not inspected by the USDA. I mean, that's not to say that being under USDA inspection isn't great, because it is, but if you're learning killing, if you're learning knocking, the rules still apply. All of the humane handling rules apply to custom exempt processing, without a doubt, 100%. That goes without saying, or, I mean, it should go with saying, I guess. However, you don't usually have an inspector watching over all of your knocks, and if there is ever an incident, knock on wood that there never is, if anything comes up, you're generally able to swiftly and responsibly correct this deviation from normal protocol without the fear of being shut down for an extended period of time. It's a great way to practice. And the other thing is that you're not limited to certain hours. So you might find some custom shops in your area that are working after a normal workday. If you're a 9-to-5er, you're not bound to USDA time. And so, if you can find like a shift on a boning table from 5 to 9, 3 nights a week, you can make a little scratch, and you can build some skills, and eventually maybe work your way into a full-time job there if that's what you're really after. Same goes for, kill trucks that work on the weekends. If you can find somebody that's got a small truck that they go around and do farm kills, and you want to get into slaughter or even meat cutting, I think it's a great idea to start your meat cutting career with slaughter. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You'll have a greater idea of overall anatomy, and it'll just provide you with a perspective that will be very helpful in the future. And then, autumn or seasonal game processing, that's another thing. You may say to yourself in the spring, I really want to get into meat cutting. I want to make a slow transition. I'm going to apply for a job boning venison and elk, somewhere this fall. That's a great way. You could go hard at night, 3-4 nights a week, make a bunch of scratch. Usually if you've got any kind of knife skills whatsoever, you're going to make between $15 and $20 an hour cash just to bone. And I would highly suggest that, because that's another thing that if you work hard and you prove yourself valuable to these business owners, you may find yourself with an offer for a full-time job if it ever comes up. You can make those connections now and then get your foot in the door. You tell somebody like, I want to make this transition. I want to be a butcher. I'm going to come work the fall for you. And if you like how I work, I'd really like to be considered next time you get an opening. And just be straight with somebody and tell them what you're after. Be humble and be honest, and tell them you want to get after it. Don't think about managing, or like when you get into these places, don't think about how the business could be better or what you could be changing. Just put your head down and work on your knife skills and your food safety. That's the number one thing when you're in these places the first few years. Now, what if you're a shop and you're looking for help? We talked about this when we were talking about SWOT analysis and smart planning, and one of the things that we identified as threats or weaknesses were the ability to either retain talent or the ability to find talent in your local community, because you may be very rural and the labor pool may be extremely limited. What kind of program do you set up in order to cultivate some good workers that you could retain? There's a couple different things. I think if you were a nonprofit, maybe if you're like an agritourism type place, or I'm not sure, what it would take. If you're a nonprofit educational farm and you had a meat cutting program, you could definitely have quote unquote interns, people who would come and not do a lot of work, but gain experience and help you with some of your busy labor. The thing about that I find to be super difficult is that your most productive people then have to become coaches and kind of hold people's hands through a process. And, it really takes anybody, even a seasoned vet, 30 days to get used to a cut shop. If you have somebody that's never been in a cut shop before, it could take a good 6 months, in my experience, getting comfortable and knowing what the heck they're doing. So I think that that's really specific to a certain type of business. If you're a for-profit butchery, whether you're a wholesale cut room, fabrication facility, boning line, large retail space, small retail space, whatever it may be, if you're a for-profit business, I think it would be very difficult to utilize interns and get anything back from that. Seems like a lot of labor and money and time spent on not producing for a for-profit. And in this sort of situation, I would recommend having an apprentice. And an apprentice program is something you want to put together, and it would be, I think, minimum 2 years, broken up into quarters with weekly or quarterly goals. I guess monthly goals is really probably how I've done it in the past and how I'm currently doing it. So break it up into quarters with monthly goals and have some pay incentive along the way. So maybe they start very low, but every 6 months or every year, maybe they get a bump of 50 cents or something until they're at their journeyman status. Once they pass your apprenticeship, then they can make a journeyman's wage, starting wage, that is. What worked for me is I was put on a spot, a species, usually, or a certain task. So when I first started, I was on the poultry block, taking care of poultry tray pack, taking care of the fresh case for poultry, keeping it super, super full, keeping the ice looking nice, fabricating whatever needed to be in the window at the time, or taking care of the backstop. That was my job. I think I was on the poultry block for like a year, at least. And probably 9 months into that year, I learned how to open the poultry case. 3 months in, I learned how to close it, and I stayed there, and I didn't touch another species. Now, if you're set up in like a multi-species production facility where you're going to be breaking a species a day or a couple a day, what I suggest doing is every week giving an apprentice one thing and only letting them do that one thing, boning out trim pieces and then this cut. So you're going to get top sirloins with the ball tip and the flat iron on and the bone in all day. You're going to get that all day, every single day. And that's the only thing you're going to do except for bone other trim. And then the next week, give them another one. And then the third week, bring them back to the first one. And it's just about building reps in people's heads. That's the bottom line. And but I do suggest having somebody on either a PIP or an IDP while they're in an apprenticeship program, so you can have some milestones and then a scheduled, maybe monthly sit-down talk about what's been going on in their learning process, questions they may have that they're unable to have addressed on the block, time for criticism, time for opportunities and things like that. Once a month, I think, is more than enough for this sort of thing. Ultimately, you're going to be paying these people to work, and so you want them to do work, and so the actual classroom time, as I call it, talking about things, sitting down, going over instruction is pretty minimal. You really want this person to be working reps, and so I think that works for most for-profit deals. Having somebody that's actually going to make you a little bit of money because you're going to be paying them. You need them to produce. One other little piece of advice about apprenticeships, or apprentices rather, is don't put them in managerial situations too soon. I think it takes a really long time to learn how to manage people, and it's a completely different skill set. And I would almost suggest making management skills part of the apprenticeship as you get into the second, probably like the third quarter of the second year, something like that. Because so many people out there get thrust into positions too early, and then they're not ever able to recover their skills. Let people just work their skills for a long time. Because I know it happens all the time, but down the road when this person wants to take the next step in their career, it's best when working managers have tight skills. I think that's, leading by example is not only a character thing, but it's also a skill thing too. So, it's just food for thought. Anyways, there you have it. Just some simple answers to some frequently asked questions about how to get into the trade and apprenticeships and the like. If you're interested in a list of places that we are aware of, let us know at themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com or either of our handles on Instagram. We can refer you to certain people around the country that we've worked with or that we know come highly recommended. And there's lots of opportunities out there. While it is a dying trade, that does mean that there are a shit ton of open jobs out there.
All right. That person in the beginning of David's segment, I like to believe was me because I give excellent advice. What? Is that a garbage truck? Yeah. That's pretty cool. Well, if you want to contact David, he is at a farm butcher on Instagram. Ryan is at Gather and Break on Instagram. I am at American Butcher on Instagram. You can email us at themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, the best way to do that is leave 5 stars. And you're coming by? Yeah. All right, come over here. And please leave a comment.
I got a garbage can.
Awesome. A garbage can? Yeah. And if you want to support us in other ways, the best way to do that as well, or another way to do that, is by checking out the butchersguild.com or in the checking. I can't. What are you doing?
Putting this piano.
You're playing with that?
Yeah.
Did you say keep your knife sharp?
A knife. What's this?
Keep your knife sharp and live in the margin. Say bye.
What's this?
That's a boom.
Why?
Because it holds the microphone.
Arm boom.
Is that an arm boom?
Yeah. Or that camera is there.
No, that's a microphone, not a jackhammer.
What's this?
A cord.
Why?
So it gets sound from here into the computer.
What's this?
The boom again.
What's this up there?
The boom.